They were too young to buy a beer, but old enough to fleece millions. A rogue gallery of teenage masterminds who turned basements and bedrooms into fraud factories, only to trade their freedom for prison bars. These are their shocking tales of deception, ambition, and downfall. Imagine walking into a doctor's office. The man in the white coat greets you with a warm smile, asks the right questions, takes your pulse, and offers treatment. Everything seems normal, until you learn he's not a doctor at all. He's a teenager. Malachi Love Robinson, an 18-year-old from West Palm Beach, Florida, didn't just dream of being a doctor. He faked it, opening a medical practice, treating the sick, and pocketing thousands, all without a shred of legitimate training. From 2015 to 2020, his scams fleeced vulnerable victims and landed him behind bars. Twice. This is the story of how a kid dubbed Dr. Love built a house of cards with stolen trust, only to watch it collapse under the weight of his own ambition. Malachi's saga began in 2015, a wiry 17-year-old with a smooth voice and a relentless drive. Raised in Palm Beach County, he'd shadowed doctors and earned certificates in holistic care, but his aspirations outpaced his credentials. By early 2016, at 18, he took a reckless leap. He opened the New Birth New Life Medical Center in West Palm Beach, complete with an office, a lab coat emblazoned with Dr. Love, and a website touting fake degrees, PhD, MD, the works. Patients came drawn by his confidence. He conducted physical exams, prescribed treatments, and made house calls, projecting the poise of a seasoned physician. But it was all a sham. On February 16, 2016, an undercover officer posed as a patient, catching Malachi mid-exam. Sheriff's deputies stormed in, arresting him for practicing medicine without a license. The fallout revealed more. Anita Morrison, an 86-year-old patient, had sought Malachi for stomach pain. Between 2015 and 2016, he siphoned $34,504 from her checking account, $29,700 for his Nissan auto loans, $3,000 to Citibank, $1,800 to Capital One, plus $2,800 in stolen checks. She lost over $30,000 trusting a doctor who was still a teenager. While out on bail in September 2016, Malachi struck again, this time in Virginia. He tried to buy a $35,000 Jaguar using a stolen credit card and listing an elderly woman as a co-signer without her consent. The dealership caught on, and deputies arrested him for fraud. In 2018, he pleaded guilty to a slew of charges: practicing medicine without a license, grand theft, identity fraud, earning over 3 years in a Florida prison with credit for time served. Released on September 23, 2019, Malachi, now 22, vowed reform. But old habits lingered. In early 2020, he landed a job at United States of Freight, a Delray Beach shipping broker connecting shippers with truckers. Instead of funneling client payments to the company, he diverted $10,129.81 to his personal accounts: Venmo, PayPal, a SunTrust account under a shell company. Owner Daniel O'Sullivan flagged the theft in March 2020, showing police texts where Malachi begged, "I don't want to go to jail," promising to repay. Arrested on December 31, 2020, he faced grand theft and organized fraud charges. On December 27, 2022, at 25, he pleaded guilty in Palm Beach County, landing a sentence of 2 years and 4 months, plus $10,129 in restitution, starting in early 2023. As of April 2025, Malachi sits in prison again, his Dr. Love days a cautionary tale. From 2015 to 2020, he preyed on trust, patients, employers, strangers, netting over $40,000 in ill-gotten gains. His story, a blend of teenage bravado and serial grift, proves that even the boldest lies can't outrun the law forever. It began with a single message, a fleeting ping on a teenage boy's phone that promised connection but delivered ruin. In the quiet suburbs of California, two brothers, Samuel and Daniel, aged 17 and 19, stumbled into a dark corner of the internet in the summer of 2020. What started as a reckless scheme to make quick cash would end with a boy's life lost, dozens of victims scarred, and the brothers locked away in federal prison. This is the story of how a pair of bored teenagers ignited a tragedy that rippled far beyond their control. Samuel was the younger, a wiry high school junior with a sharp mind and a restless streak. Daniel, freshly graduated and aimless, had a knack for talking his way into anything. Together, they were a combustible mix, ambitious but unmoored, scrolling through online forums late at night during the pandemic lockdown. That's where they found the blueprint. Tales of sextortion, a scam as simple as it was cruel. Pretend to be a pretty girl, charm a mark into sending compromising photos, then blackmail them for cash. The brothers saw dollar signs in the pixels. Armed with a burner phone and a fake Instagram account, they set to work. By late 2020, they'd perfected their act. Samuel crafted the persona. Katie, a flirty 16-year-old with stolen selfies plucked from obscure profiles. Daniel handled the threats, his tone cold and precise when the trap snapped shut. They targeted teenage boys, guys their own age, scouring gaming chats and social media for lonely, trusting souls. The first few hits were small, $50 here, $100 there, wired through Cash App with shaky apologies from humiliated victims. But the brothers grew bolder, their demands climbing with each success. By January 2021, they'd honed a rhythm, netting hundreds a week without leaving their shared bedroom. Then came Jordan. On a snowy night in Marquette, Michigan, 17-year-old Jordan DeMay was scrolling Instagram when Katie slid into his DMs. A varsity football player with a quiet smile, he was flattered by the attention. Exactly what Samuel and Daniel counted on. Katie coaxed him along, her messages playful and persistent. On January 28, 2021, Jordan sent the photo they'd been fishing for, a moment of vulnerability he couldn't take back. Within hours, the mask dropped. Daniel texted from the burner, "Send $1,000 or this goes to your friends, your team, your mom." A screenshot of Jordan's follower list punctuated the threat. Panicked, Jordan scraped together $300 from his savings and begged for mercy. The brothers refused. "More, or it's over," came the reply. Jordan's world unraveled in 6 hours. By dawn on January 29th, his parents found him in his room, a handgun beside him, the shame too heavy to bear. The note he left said only, "I'm sorry." His death stunned Marquette, a tight-knit town unaccustomed to such loss. Local police traced the messages to a dead-end IP, but Jordan's story didn't end there. His parents, refusing silence, pushed for answers, and the case landed on the FBI's radar by spring. Unfazed, Samuel and Daniel pressed on. Jordan's suicide was a blip to them, a grim footnote they shrugged off as they targeted 38 more boys across the U.S. From Ohio to Oregon, they extorted thousands, their Cash App balance swelling to $12,000 by mid-2021. They bought sneakers, a used car, even a gold chain for Daniel, trophies of their hustle. But the FBI was closing in. Cybercrime agents unraveled their digital trail. Sloppy VPN use, a recycled burner number, a careless brag in a Discord server. In August 2023, warrants hit their California home. Samuel tried to smash the phone. Daniel just stared as agents cuffed them. The trial came fast. In June 2024, a federal courtroom in Sacramento laid bare the wreckage. 39 victims, 1 dead, countless lives fractured. Prosecutors played Katie's messages aloud, Samuel's words now a noose around his neck. Jordan's mother testified, her voice breaking as she held his photo. The brothers' defense, youth, desperation, a pandemic's toll, crumbled against the evidence. Samuel, now 20, got 17 years for conspiracy to sexually exploit minors. Daniel, 22, drew 12. As they were led away, the judge called their scheme a calculated evil, a warning etched into the record. Jordan's tragedy sparked more than their downfall. By April 2025, his name fueled a national push against sextortion, with laws tightening and task forces expanding. Samuel and Daniel, locked in separate federal prisons, became the cautionary tale they'd never meant to write. But for 38 other boys and 1 grieving family in Michigan, the lesson came too late. In a world where virtual bars held no real locks, a Texas teenager named Rez turned a $17.50 gamble into a digital gold mine, until the game he played flipped into a 5-year prison sentence. It was 2018, and at just 16, Rez wasn't your typical criminal mastermind. He was a lanky kid with a cheap laptop, a Roblox obsession, and a hunger for cash that would take him from pixelated scams to federal handcuffs. This is the story of how a bored gamer built an empire on lies, only to watch it crumble under the weight of his own greed. Rez, short for Reynaldo, though he'd never admit it, lived in a dusty Houston suburb where summer days dragged on endlessly. Roblox, the blocky online platform teeming with user-made games, was his escape. In June 2018, he stumbled across Stateview Correctional Facilities, a prison simulator where players role-played as guards or inmates. Its creator had abandoned it, listing it for sale on a developer forum for $17.50. Pocket change Rez scraped from his birthday cash. He bought it on a whim, not knowing it would become his ticket to thousands. At first, Rez just tinkered. He tweaked the code, added a few perks, extra uniforms, faster cars for guards, and watched the player count tick up. By August, Stateview had 10,000 users, drawn by his promise of a gritty, immersive experience. But Rez saw more than a game. He saw a hustle. He started selling VIP passes for $5 a pop, virtual perks like exclusive cells or weapons that didn't even work half the time. Players didn't care. They paid through Roblox's Robux currency, which Rez cashed out via PayPal. By December 2018, he was pulling in $1,000 a week, a fortune for a kid still dodging chores. The real leap came in 2019. Rez, now 17, hired a handful of freelance developers, other teens he met in Discord, to polish the game. He promised them a cut of the profits, but as Stateview ballooned to 100,000 players and $5,000 a week, he kept the cash for himself. He bought a new gaming rig, AirPods, a dirt bike, T treating his bedroom like a throne room. The developers, unpaid and furious, leaked his scheme on Twitter in July 2019. Screenshots of broken promises and fake perks went viral in the Roblox community. Players abandoned Stateview in droves, calling Rez a scammer. He laughed it off. Roblox's lax oversight meant no cops came knocking. At 17, he dodged the bullet, but the thrill of easy money had hooked him deep. The virtual hustle wasn't enough anymore. By 2021, Rez, now 18 and out of high school, turned to the real world. He'd learned about carding from dark web forums, using stolen credit card numbers to buy goods online. With $200, he bought a batch of fulls, names, card details, addresses, from a sketchy vendor. He started small, ordering electronics from Walmart and reselling them on eBay. By mid-2022, he'd scaled up, hitting boutique retailers for high-end gear, laptops, watches, even a $3,000 drone. He funneled the profits through a maze of Venmo accounts, pocketing $50,000 in a year. To Rez, it was just State View all over again. Exploit the system, cash out, repeat. But the real world wasn't Roblox. In January 2023, a string of chargebacks caught the eye of a fraud analyst at one of his Target stores. The trail led to a Houston IP address, then a shipping address Rez had used carelessly. A friend's apartment. The FBI stepped in, raiding his house on March 15, 2023. They found the drone, a stack of unopened packages, and a laptop littered with incriminating chats. Rez, cocky even in cuffs, told agents, "It's just business." The evidence said otherwise. The trial was swift. In August 2023, a federal courtroom in Houston heard how Rez's $50,000 haul had tanked small businesses already reeling from pandemic losses. Prosecutors painted him as a predator, not a kid. His defense leaned on his age and lack of priors. It didn't sway the judge. At 20, Rez was sentenced to 5 years in a Texas federal prison for wire fraud and identity theft, plus $50,000 in restitution he'd never repay. As of April 2025, he's 2 years in, trading prison chores for the virtual empire he once ruled. Rez's story isn't unique, just louder. The Roblox scam, exposed in 2019, was a warning he ignored. A stepping stone to crimes with real bars. From a $17.50 game to a federal cell, he played the hustler's game and lost, proving the line between virtual and real is thinner than it seems. He was 16 when he discovered that a lie could unlock a fortune. A single phone call that turned a Glasgow call center into the launchpad for a £2.5 million global fraud spree. Elliot Castro, a wiry Scottish teenager with a dreamer's itch, didn't just stumble into crime. He sprinted toward it, chasing a life of first-class flights, 5-star hotels, and luxury watches with other people's money. Over 5 years, he danced across continents, evading police with the bravado of a movie star, until the curtain fell in an Edinburgh department store. This is the tale of how a boy from Battlefield became Britain's boldest teenage scammer, and how his high-rolling empire crashed into prison bars. Elliot Castro's story begins in 1998, in the gritty south side of Glasgow. Born in 1982 to a Scottish mother and a Chilean father, he'd bounced between Aberdeen and Chile before landing in Glasgow at 16. A restless kid with no qualifications and a chip on his shoulder. School hadn't stuck. He'd attended 8 before dropping out, but he had a quick mind and a knack for improvisation. That fall, he bluffed his way into a job at a mobile phone call center, lying about his age to pass as 18. It was a mundane gig, logging customer orders until he realized the gold mine at his fingertips, credit card details, ripe for the taking. His first scam was small, almost accidental. In early 1999, a customer called to place an order, and Elliot, instead of processing it, jotted down their card number, expiry date, and name in a notebook. On a whim, he called their bank, posing as the card holder, and sweet-talked a new card to a drop address, a friend's flat. When it arrived, he tested it. A 30-pound haircut, a few CDs, a cheap jacket. The rush hit him hard, money for nothing, and no one the wiser. By spring, he'd refined the trick, exploiting the call center's database to harvest dozens of accounts. He'd impersonate customers with eerie calm, rerouting cards to his control, and soon the purchases escalated. A 300-pound Gucci belt in London, a 700-pound Louis Vuitton bag, a 1,000-pound night at a champagne bar. By late 1999, Elliot was 17 and unstoppable. He quit the call center, taking his notebook of stolen details with him, and turned fraud into a full-time gig. He'd call hotels, posing as a receptionist to snag guest card info, or bluff banks into adding him as an authorized user, sometimes in his own name, a bold flex of confidence. The cash flowed, and so did the lifestyle. In 2000, he splashed 8,000 pounds on a first-class flight to New York, checking into the Plaza Hotel like a Home Alone fantasy. Over 3 days, he burned $15,000 on Fifth Avenue, Rolex watches, Armani suits, gifts for strangers to impress. Back in Europe, he partied with U2's Bono in Dublin, posing as a hotel consultant with a stolen American Express, and cruised the Bahamas on a Texas oil man's yacht, spinning tales as a Royal Navy lieutenant. Elliot's scams weren't flawless. In 1999, Manchester police nearly nabbed him when a shop clerk caught his name not matching a receipt. He bolted, fed the cops a sob story about running away from home, and walked free. In 2001, posing as a doctor on a train with a stolen card, he was forced to treat a passenger's panic attack, bluffing alongside real medics to avoid exposure. He got 4 months in Carlisle for that stunt, his first taste of jail, but it didn't deter him. Released in 2002, he hit Toronto, posing as a secret agent in an Armani suit, racking up $15,000 in a spree before Canadian police caught him. Jailed for 87 days and deported, he duped immigration with a fake call to slip UK custody on arrival. The spree stretched on. By 21, Elliot had burned through £2.5 million, leaving a trail of fraud across Britain, Ireland, Canada, and beyond. His photographic memory, dozens of card numbers locked in his head, kept him ahead of the game. But the high life wore thin. Friends he'd made couldn't know the real him, and the lies piled up. On November 5th, 2004, it ended in Edinburgh's Harvey Nichols. He'd bought £2,000 in gift vouchers with a stolen Amex, but a sharp receptionist double-checked the card. Elliot returned an hour later, cocky and careless, and police were waiting. Arrested at 22, he faced the music at Isleworth Crown Court in 2005, pleading guilty to £73,447 in fraud, with 431 similar offenses considered. The sentence? 2 years in prison. As of April 2025, Elliot's days of fraud are history. Multiple stints behind bars, Britain, Ireland, Canada, and that final UK term stripped the glamour from his game. The £12,000 Rolex police recovered was all they got back. The rest vanished into his whirlwind life. At 42, he's a reformed man, a fraud prevention consultant turning his past into a shield for others. But back then, from 1998 to 2004, Elliot Castro was a teenage phantom, living large, running fast, and betting it all on the next con. From sextortion tragedies to fake doctor cons, these teenage scammers turned wild dreams into hard time, proof that crime doesn't pay, even when you're too young to know better. They're still behind bars, their stories ringing as warnings for the next generation. Huge thanks to you legends who watched to the end. Now, let's talk. Drop a comment below. Which tale shocked you most? What lesson hit deepest? Don't just watch. Join the conversation. Smash that subscribe button, hit the bell, and stay with True Crime Teen Network for more jaw-dropping cases every day. Keep digging for the truth.